Hey, this is Mark Pellegrino, and you are watching the Bois podcast.
Mind if I join you?
Please. Want some fish?
Thank you. I'll just eat.
I take it you're here because of the ship.
I am. How did they find the island?
You'll have to ask them when they get here.
This is Special Agent Smith. Please leave your name, number, and a detail.
Oh, wow. That's every cell phone Dean's got. One of them should have picked up, right? Big Brother's probably dead.
Shut up.
He said shut up to me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bois podcast. Today, I'm joined by a legendary actor. He's been in shows such as Supernatural. He's been in Lost. He's been in 13 Reasons Why, and he's very amazing and cool, in my opinion. Mr. Mark Pellegrino. Welcome, Mark.
Hey, thank you, man. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Mark?
Pretty good. It's a little bit rainy here where I am, but other than that, it's nice.
Nice. Okay. Well,
And I'm good.
Good. Good to hear that. Yeah. Okay. So now that things are opening up, like, what have you been up to? How's Mark been?
Well, I have a little COVID PTSD. You know what PTSD is? Post-traumatic stress disorder. So I'm a little nervous about going out around people and being around people because it's been a year and a half. But luckily, my wife came to visit me here on the location where I've been since February, and she stayed here 3 weeks. And we've both been vaccinated, so she forced me to go out onto the town and go to museums and restaurants and actually start being human again. And it was weird, but it's something I think I could get used to.
Nice. Yeah, see, during my start of quarantine, I graduated high school virtually, because this whole pandemic.
Was that a bummer? Was that a bummer? Did you like that, or was it a bummer?
I think it was a bummer, in my opinion. I wish I could have been there in person, like a ceremony usually is.
Yeah, I mean, so you have nothing to compare it to, but when I graduated high school, 40 some odd, almost 40 years ago now, we were outside in our gowns with our hats, and we had the valedictorian speak, and the teachers get up there and speak, and we threw our hats in the air, and so that's a whole thing. I'm sorry you missed out on that, but hey, you graduated. That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you. And I figured I start this podcast to start a positive impact. Help cheer people up, lift people up.
Oh, that's great. So that's why you started the podcast, to help lift people up?
Yeah.
All right. That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. Okay. Now, what made you want to become an actor, and who's your biggest inspiration for acting, would you say?
Well, I'll answer the second question first. I have a lot of inspirations for acting because there's a lot of talented people out there in Hollywood, and I've been fortunate enough to work with a lot of talented people. So some of the people that I've admired the most, like Jeff Bridges and Seymour Hoffman, were actors that I got the opportunity to work with and study. Jeff Goldblum, you might remember him from Jurassic Park. He is one of my favorite actors, and I've been fortunate enough to work with him on plays and watch him teach in class, and he's a very inspiring person to me. What got me into acting was just I had nothing else to do. I was in college for a while, but I fell in love with a girl and dropped out of college and was just working a job and seeing this girl, and I didn't have any prospects for the future. And I did start to think about that, even though I was 19 years old. It is something that you should think about. And I saw an advertisement for a modeling agency, not modeling agency, a modeling school / agency. So you had to pay to model. But they were giving away classes for free, and I took those classes because I thought, well, maybe modeling is the place I'll go. People tell me I'm not bad looking. But then they offered a class in what they called a commercial workshop class that was taught by an actor who was a fairly well-known commercial actor at the time. I didn't know him, but I think he was. He thought I had talent and set me up with an agent. And so I started going up for auditions before I knew anything about acting, before I knew how to act. I even started working in the business before I knew anything about acting. And then I knew I wanted to act, but I wasn't that interested in filmmaking and or movies. And I didn't think actors had very interesting things to say. So I was very focused on my acting technique and learning how to act, but not necessarily translating that over into my work in the professional world, and not necessarily doing anything about that. I was just, learning how to act and doing plays and trying to get better at my craft. And I assumed that the rest would fall into place if you worked at that. That's not entirely true. But it was because my wife came into my life and introduced me to foreign film and introduced me to cinema and got me committed to a course of studying film, that I became more of a lover of film and a devotee to acting in every respect of the word. So I've been in the business, about 30 years, but I'd say I've been serious about it for 10 or 12.
Wow. I think you're very talented, Mark.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what is your favorite role that you've portrayed of all your roles? Your favorite?
I think my favorite role in television or film is a character named Gavin Q. Baker III, and that was on a show called The Closer. I think that was on TNT, and I want to say 8 or 9 episodes of the last season of that show before Kira dropped out. Kira Sedgwick was the main actress. She dropped out and it became a show called Major Crimes. But I played her defense lawyer because she got in a lot of trouble as a character on the show. She was, what was she? Was she a detective? She was either a detective or a cop. I don't remember which. Sorry. But she got in a lot of trouble all the time. She was always doing things her way, which is great. But sometimes that gets you in hot water. And so she got into a big mess, and I was the defense attorney who had to bail her out. That was one of my favorite parts that I've done that people would see. Otherwise, I'd say some of my favorite stuff has been in the theater, which a very small group of people see.
Wow, that's really cool. Well, I really liked you in Lost as Jacob. I think you were really good as that character.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
that was fun. That was fun to work on. I didn't know that I was going to be playing Jacob when I got there.
Really?
Yeah. They were very secretive at the time about making roles and auditions public because the fans out there were trying to get spoiler alerts, and then they would publish those spoilers. And so, in order to prevent fans from publishing spoilers, they would keep auditions secret and characters that they were releasing secret. Ordinarily in the business, the characters are released on a thing called the breakdowns. And the breakdowns go to all the agents and managers, and then the agents and managers submit their actors for those characters. But these characters wouldn't be listed in the breakdowns under their proper names, so that nobody would know, what was going on in the series from one week to the next. So when I auditioned for the part's name was Jason, not Jacob. And it was a slightly different scene on the beach between the man in black and Jacob. But the character wasn't called the man in black. He was called something else. So I didn't know that I was Jacob until I actually landed on Hawaii and met Michael Emerson. And he's an actor on the show who told me that I was the new Jacob.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Now, if you could pick any role that you haven't done yet thus far, is there a role you want to do?
Oh, yeah. Yes. I would love to play Quasimodo. Have you ever heard of Quasimodo? So So
Yeah.
there's this great French classical author by the name of Victor Hugo, Hugo, and he wrote a number of great classic works, Les Miserables, which they did as a musical, long-running musical on Broadway, and they've done it as I think a number of films. The latest one was with Hugh Jackman. It's done as a musical. Anne Hathaway, I think, won an Academy Award for her part in it. And he did a piece called "The Hunchback of Notre Dame," which has been done in many
Nah.
movie versions by great actors. I want to say Anthony Hopkins has done a version of it. Peter, who else? I'm blanking on some of the great names who have done Quasimodo, but the part is a great romantic part. He's technically a monster, right? He's the hunchback who lives in the towers of Notre Dame, and he falls in love with this woman Esmeralda, but he's in competition with her for her love because she loves somebody else. But there's a monk by the name of Frodo, a priest who lives in Notre Dame and takes care of Quasimodo, who's in love with her too, but he's evil. And so Quasimodo eventually has a confrontation over his love for Esmeralda with the big bad villain of the story. So he's an awesome character. I'd love to play that guy.
Oh, I think I know. Is he the guy? Does he like wear like dark green?
Yes, they do. Yeah, they do. They do dress him up in dark green. Yeah, very good. And they've done a big Disney cartoon, I think, called The Hunchback of Notre Dame too. Is it called The Hunchback of Notre Dame? I don't know. You could find that out.
So cast him as the new Hunchback of Notre Dame, right? Guess Mark.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Although
Okay.
it's a big. There's a lot of makeup that would go into it, so I don't think my age matters.
Okay. Now, over the years of your career, do you still keep in touch with co-stars and directors?
It's funny. I do with some, but not all. I think people have the perception that Hollywood is a very small town, and it is, and that we all know each other. And I think many of us have worked with each other, but there is definitely a small network of folks that stay in touch with each other all the time. I'm not necessarily in that network, and that's partly because I'm different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm different. I have different values than lots of folks in Hollywood. I'm not putting their values down because mine are different. We're just different. I identify as a pure liberal, and that's not the way the world is today. That's a very outside the box way of being, and you tend to hang around people who are like you, right? Who have the same values as you. And there's a few folks in Hollywood that are like that I keep in contact with, and even a few that aren't. But for the most part, I'm like Lucifer. I'm like on the outside, and I don't know if I like it there, but it's teaching me to be nice and independent, and so I'm okay. I'm okay. I do have friends who have all kinds of connections all over the place. They make friends with actors and stay friends with them, their whole careers. One of my friends, Clifton Collins, who I did a movie with, he knows everybody. And he hasn't even worked with everybody, but he knows everybody. And look, he knows me, and we keep track of each other and keep in touch with each other. Acting is weird, because you get on a show and you become very intensely intimate with a small group of people for a short period of time, and you feel like you're going to be friends with them forever, and then you go off to do other projects in other parts of the world, and they're doing other projects in other parts of the world, and you don't really talk to each other, necessarily, unless you work again, and then you pick up where you left off when you work. But unless you're like Jared and Jensen, who have been working together for 15 years and are neighbors who live side by side, you're probably going to step out of people's lives for a long time, and then maybe rediscover your relationships with them when you work with them again. But for the most part, we're gypsies. We go from one project to another, and if you're like me, a guy on the outside, you sort of stay on the outside.
Nice.
So.
Oh, okay. So, who was the coolest person, would you say, that you've worked with? The coolest?
Oh boy. I mean, I'll offend somebody because I've done so many things. Sometimes it's hard to keep them all in my head at one time. But I mean, I would say Philip Seymour Hoffman was one of the coolest people I ever worked with. Not only because he was a great actor, and great from the very moment he stepped on screen. I remember I saw him. He had a small part in a movie called Twister, and I was just blown away by him. And I think he did Dead Poet Society, I think, before that. But even when he did small parts, he just blew my mind. And then as he started to evolve into these more substantial roles, mostly supporting roles, until Capote, I think, he always stole the scene, in every movie that he did. And then to get a chance to work with him, in person, I got to see how a genius at their craft works, and it was pretty amazing. But on top of that, he was a very generous man. He said extraordinarily generous things about me and my work, and he was really, really almost over the top in his praise of me, and I didn't know what to do with it because it was so generous, and he didn't have to do that, but he did. So I loved working with him. I also loved working with Jeff Bridges. I did a movie called The Big Lebowski with him, and I always thought he was an underrated actor. I mean, I think he'd been nominated for Last Picture Show or for an Academy Award, but I always found him extraordinary. And well before he was really acknowledged with True Grit and The Big Lebowski and some of the movies that he did later on in his career that really showed off how amazing he was. And I loved watching him because he was a perfect combination of the intuitive actor and the actor who knows technically what's good and what's bad. That's a tough combination. They're not often in the same actor,
Mm-hmm.
So I would say those two guys right off the bat. Jeff Goldblum also, who directed me in something. I thought he was great. So those are my guys for now.
Mm-hmm. The cool guys, right? The cool guys.
They're cool guys. They're very cool guys.
Okay. Now, is there a director that taught you the most? And is there a director you want to work with eventually down the line?
I've worked with some great directors, and the thing about really great directors is they don't really talk to you a lot. I think at least my experience so far is, they hired you to do the job. That's 90% of the job. And, maybe every once in a while they'll come up to you and say a word or two if they think the ship needs to be corrected, right? Like, like a plane is on autopilot and all the pilot has to do is, sometimes tweak the wheel a little bit to make sure they're fully on course. And that's what a director does. I never had the relationship like between a Marty Scorsese and a Robert De Niro or a Elia Kazan and Marlon Brando, where Kazan would give acting lessons, without giving them. It's like he grew up in the group theater and he directed in the group theater in the 30s, and he was an acolyte of Stanislavski and Lee Strasberg, and that's where the method, quote unquote, that all actors use in America started. And so he taught through his direction. I mean, the way he directed actors is sort of the way I would have loved to have grown up in the film industry. And you could see how a great genius like Marlon Brando would really flourish under somebody like Elia Kazan, or how De Niro could really hone his craft under, somebody as prolific as Marty Scorsese, who knew so much about film. And but the great directors who directed me, they just mostly left me alone, and there's something to be learned from that, right? That you are your own creative force, and the director is hiring you to do your job, and they expect you to do it, and since you can't see how you look when you're working, every once in a while they have to make adjustments for you. But for the most part, they just let you experiment. They trust you, which is great.
So that you just like go free, right? Be freely. Right.
I think a good director lets you feel free. They don't make you self-conscious about any part of the work. I remember I was working with Joel Schumacher on a movie called The Number 23 with a very fine actor by the name of Jim Carrey, who's known as a comedian, a sort of over-the-top comedian, but he's a very fine actor. And when we were rehearsing, they were setting up the camera. There was a part of me that was concerned about the camera, and Joel was like, "Don't worry about that. Just do whatever you do, and we'll make the camera go around you." And it's not the first time I've heard a director, put the actors first and make the technology revolve around whatever the actors do. But you're not used to that in television. In television, they sometimes they set up shots, and you have to negotiate your way around the shot. And I think that's the wrong way to do things. But of course, because it's hard enough to have moments like this between you and I, right? Imagine cameras all around you and you having to adjust to the way a camera's moving. That adds stuff to the moment that makes it really difficult to be human, right? To be natural with each other. So when Joel said that, it planted a seed in my head how great it is to have a director who puts the technology around the actor as opposed to the actor working around the technology.
Wow. Okay. Now, if you never went to like acting or like any filmmaking or television, what would your career be, and what other interests and hobbies do you have besides acting?
So I think I would be one of two things. I would probably be a history teacher, probably in a university somewhere if they would hire me. Or if my body didn't have a lot of injuries, if I was completely healthy, I would go full time into jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and I would teach that.
Wow. So you're gonna teach me some moves? I'm just kidding.
I would, but I'm only a 2-stripe white belt because I keep getting hurt. So it's a tough art. But if you can stay healthy through it, it's really great. I recommend it for you.
Thank you. Now, do you have any hobbies? What's your hobbies?
I read.
You read, okay.
I read, and lately I've been producing these little shorts called reality checks. I've only done one, but I don't know if you can see my little setup there in the background. That's my blue screen, and I don't know if you can see it, but I'm going to be putting another one on film at some point today.
Wow.
What's that?
That's really cool. I'm sorry, that's really cool.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah, because I actually do as a hobby too. I don't know if I told you, I actually write stories and scripts actually as a hobby.
Oh wow, that's a great hobby.
So yeah, when you actually reading, I was like, oh my god, that's I like to read, but I like to write mainly a lot too.
Sure, writing is good. I wrote a script. My wife tells me it's not a first draft yet. I think it's a first draft, but it needs a lot more work, so I got to do that too.
Well, okay. Now, do you have a favorite band and type of music?
I mean, I tend to like 80s heavy metal is sort of my thing. That's what I grew up with. What they call hair bands. Like Tesla and Slaughter and Rat and Def Leppard and I went through a slight punk phase when I was a sophomore and junior in high school. So I listened to LA punk bands, but I can listen to anything. I like classic rock, the best. If I'm going to listen to anything besides the 80s heavy metal, then I'd probably listen to classic rock second, and then I mean, I like big band jazz. I like jazz. I like musicals. It does, I don't have any after those preferences. I can listen to anything and be happy.
Well, now when you mentioned punk, do you like 80s? Do you like Billy Idol then? Billy Idol?
I did like Billy Idol. Yeah, and I was in a little band for a while, and we sang a Billy Idol song called White Wedding. I don't know if you know that song. Do you know
It's
that
not
song?
day
Time
for
for a white wedding. Yeah, yeah. I was more into the hardcore stuff like the Germs, Black Flag, and other stuff like stuff that I wouldn't say was hardcore, like XTC, the Sex Pistols, um, Circle Jerks, a little bit. The LA scene and some of the English scene. I never got into the Ramones too much, but um, I like one or two of their songs.
Because my parents, believe it or not, actually raised me on 80s music. So when you mentioned 80s music, I was like, you know where it's at, Mark.
Oh yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Yeah, 80s music too, and they're probably talking about, even just the hits in the 80s, which I love too. I love listening to that stuff because that's my youth.
Yeah.
That's when I was, well, late 70s, early 80s. That's when I was your age.
Yeah, for the and you mentioned like Def Leppard. I think like Pour Some Sugar on Me, Hysteria, Photograph, and
Yeah, 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 yeah. You know it. Right on.
yeah.
That's
So that's
good.
when you mentioned, I was like, the good music, you know?
Yeah, Def Leppard was my first concert.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Did I go to the Pyromania? I want to say I went to the Pyromania tour.
Okay, that's really
Like one
cool.
like 83, 84. I don't even know when that was.
Okay. Now, do you have a favorite food, and why is it your favorite?
As long as it's edible, I like it. No, I would say there's probably three foods that are battling for my favorite food at any one time. So it's a toss-up between pizza, hamburgers, and tacos. Any
Okay.
one of those would be my favorite food. But I don't eat them that much anymore. I'm not a health nut, but I try to eat very healthy, so I don't really eat that stuff.
So, have you ever like tried the Chicago pizza? Because that's where we're at, Chicago.
Love the Chicago pizza. Are you in Chicago?
Yes. Yes.
I love Chicago pizza. I mean, I've had Pizzeria Douai. Is that what they call it over there?
I think so.
Uh, yeah,
Pizza.
yeah. There's two pizzas places out there in Chicago that you're supposed to try, and I know I've tried one of them. Is the other one? Is there a Geno's Pizza? Is that the
Yeah,
thing?
that's
Geno's
a
East.
Geno's East pizza.
Yeah,
Geno's East.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. I love that thick crust. It's like a pie. The only thing is it takes too long to make. You sit there
Yeah.
sometimes for like an hour and a half waiting for him to make it.
And you're Italian just like me, so we got like our pizza, right? Because I'm
Pizza
Italian.
is great. Yeah, and Chicago pizza rocks.
Yeah. Because Pellegrino, that's Italian. My last name is Zito, so Zito,
Uh-huh.
Italian.
Right on.
Paisan,
Italiano.
Yeah.
Paisans.
Now, hopefully, when things get back to normal sooner rather than like they are. Do you have any projects in the works?
I mean, I'm doing this show right now for Showtime. I've been back east in Pennsylvania for a few months now. I'll be here till August. And I'm going to make my way back west with my dogs. And I know I've got a bunch of conventions I'm supposed to go to. So hopefully those stay. They don't get postponed. The one in San Francisco has gotten postponed. So hopefully Indianapolis and Dragon Con and Toronto and the other ones I'm supposed to do will remain. and I'm going to be rewriting my script, producing more of these little shorts that I'm doing, and then I'm supposed to go to Paris and meet my wife there in October. She's going to be there from June until October, and I'm going to help her teach, because we have a school out there in Paris. and probably teach a little acting and practice a little with the actors out there. Maybe do a play or rehearse a play. I don't think we'll be able to throw one up in the time that I'll be there, but yeah. So always a lot on the plate.
Wow. And then, if I remember correctly, aren't you supposed to come to Chicago for a con next year? Is it for Supernatural Con?
I hope so. Are you going to be there?
Probably.
All right, good. Good. You guys will have to let me know. You guys will have to let me know. I can give you guys my email information, and if there's a con and if I'm there, let me know. I'll get you guys in as my guests.
Thank you, Mark. We'll take you for pizza. We'll give you some good deep dish pizza.
All right, there. I'll take. Okay, it's a deal.
It's a deal. Okay. Now, what is your acting advice for people that want to go into acting? What's your advice?
One, you should go to a good acting school. That doesn't necessarily mean a university. There's probably 3 or 4 universities in the United States that have good acting schools. But there are a ton of independent for-profit acting schools. Most of them bad, but a few of them are very good. On the West Coast, I would say Jim Jarrett's school is great. Playhouse West, where I went and studied with Robert Carnegie, was great. On the East Coast, there's HB Studios and the Neighborhood Playhouse, and probably Strasberg, the Lee Strasberg Studio, and Stella Adler. Those are probably pretty reputable places that have a very good lineage. So I would say study at a place where you can get on stage at least twice a week, practice your craft, rehearse every day, which means rehearse your craft every day, but also read, study, look at film, read plays, go to plays, immerse yourself in culture. And, so it's a real job that you have to devote yourself to 8 hours a day, if you can, to rehearsing, studying, perfecting your craft, learning more. And then I would say, it's not a sprint. It is a marathon. Just like life. Life isn't a sprint, it's a marathon, right? You have to stick with it for a very long time. That means you don't know when or if your opportunity will ever come. So you have to be in it for the craft and stick with it for the long term. That's a 20 or 30 year run, maybe longer. So remember to endure and persevere. Perseverance is a very strong virtue for an actor.
And also, remember, stay humble and remember where you came from, right?
I think that's important. Yeah, because when you get a certain amount of celebrity, the one word you don't hear from people enough is no, right? Not enough people say no to you once you start becoming, something. Yeah. And you need to hear no. And the people who will tell you no are the friends who grew up with you, because, there's an old saying that says a prophet is never a prophet in his own home. And if you grew up with somebody, it's really hard for you to imagine that there's something bigger than that kid you grew up with. And so you can keep them in their, I don't want to say humble place, but in their aware place where they don't get too big for their bridges.
I like that. Mr. Pellegrino. Is there anything you like to promote and shout out that I can link down below? Anything you want to promote?
Well, just watch Rust on Showtime. I think it'll come out in September. I think it's okay to say that right now. And if you can, go to YouTube and check out Reality Check, which will be my series on YouTube that I'll be publishing hopefully every couple of weeks, maybe every month, but hopefully every couple of weeks. There'll be little philosophy shorts that will hopefully get people thinking outside their own box. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. I don't know. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. That's all I have to promote.
Nice. And if you want me to, I can link if you have Twitter and Instagram.
Sure, definitely link Mark R. Pellegrino on Twitter and Mark Ross Pelly, MarkRossPelle is my Instagram. And my Instagram is a lot nicer than my Twitter because my Instagram's all, pet photos and, stuff like that. My Twitter is more, there's some intense philosophy talk and political talk that goes on in there. And, some people don't have the stomach for that nowadays. So I understand. If you just want if you want cute animals and birds singing and nice things, then my Instagram is where you should go.
Okay, I'll do that. Okay. Well, I thank you all so much for watching. Thank you, and Mark, for being an awesome and amazing guest.
Thank you. Thanks for being an awesome and amazing host.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody, and stay awesome, Mark.
You too, man.